Did the realtors just lose some big lawsuit with commissions? Are commissions going down?
There's yeah. So it's the Sitzer Burnett trial, and it's pretty complicated. And so the National Association of Realtors would say that they have professional standards and they've done a good job to make it as fair as possible. There have been other companies, entities, and Uncle Sam that have felt as though it's been a monopoly or unfair trade practice. I think to oversimplify this complex issue, I think one of the main bones of contention have been that the seller hires an agent and says, "Hey, Mr. Agent or Mrs. Agent, will you sell my property?" You say, "Yes, I'm going to charge you a commission." They say, "Great, you sell my property and I will pay you a commission." And that's a contract. There's nothing wrong with that, right? That's everybody is entering that willingly. Well, then the agent has a contract with MLS, and MLS says, when you get a listing contract, you must share that commission with someone else that's in your MLS. And you say, "Okay, Mr. MLS or Mrs. MLS, I will share the commission with another agent as long as they're a part of my MLS." The problem is that you are third party obligating the seller to pay that commission to someone to which they don't have a contractual agreement. So you're saying to the seller, "I'm going to charge you a commission," but you're also saying, "I'm going to charge you a commission for this buyer's agent," and the seller could say, "Well, who's the buyer's agent? I don't know yet. It's anybody in my MLS." And so that is where, under contract law, people haven't felt as though that's all copacetic or whatever. So what's the alternative? Well, North Carolina is a unique situation. North Carolina has buyer agency. Not every state has buyer agency. In some states, you are only an agent of the seller. But in North Carolina, you have seller's agency, buyer's agency, and then in some instances we're one of the few states that has dual agency as well. So one of the remedies for this whole situation could be the seller agrees to pay their listing broker a commission, and then the buyer would have a contract with their buyer's agent, which would be a buyer's agency agreement, which we have in North Carolina, but the obligation would be for that buyer to pay that buyer's agent. So, the big to-do is, well, all these sellers have been overcharged, you have to give them a refund, da-da-da-da. The listing broker paid the buyer's agent, and I believe that the market's the market. So if Joe Biden, like we can get into this philosophical argument, who pays the commission, and you're allowed to take whatever side you want. You can say, well, the seller pays the commission, and I'll argue into the ground that the buyer actually pays the commission. And you go, all right, I'm going to pick the buyer. Well, I'll argue into the ground that the seller pays the commission. It's a semantical argument. I can argue it both ways. Who pays the commission? I mean, the seller has a product that they're selling, so if that doesn't exist, you're not getting paid. But if the buyer never brings their money, nobody else is getting paid either. So the market's the market. If the property is worth $200,000 and the listing broker is getting $6,000, the buyer's agent is getting $6,000, then you could say, the value of the property without a commission was $188,000. But if you say, "Oh, well, I'm just going to charge you 3%, Mr. Seller," and so then you're selling it for $194,000, but the buyer has to give their buyer's agent $6,000. It's still sold for $200,000. It's just the $6,000 went here and the $6,000 went here. Now, you might want to argue, I can get representation for $500 or $1,000. I challenge you to find good representation for $500 because it's a lot of work. But I will tell you that, I know a lot of people, I wear a few hats locally and nationally as far as different real estate committees are concerned. And I won't mind at all if they decide that only the seller will pay the listing broker commission, I'm fine with that because I'm a listing broker myself. And if they're going to pay the buyer's agent a commission, the buyer has to pay the buyer's agent. I'm fine with that. If the game changes, I'm fine with it. The people that think that it's going to change anytime soon, I think this is going to be tied up in litigation. There's no way it's going to be settled in less than 2 years. It'll probably be 5 or 10 years before this is settled, and I have no idea which way it's going to go. But I think the National Association of Realtors is going to do their best to make sure it's fair to everyone.